housing were the solution to homelessness, homelessness would have gone down.
Giving them 4 walls and a bed just doesn't address the issue.
How do you pay for your rent if you can't hold a job?
There are 15 available units that are just still sitting empty because they want to continue using drugs. Nobody wants to follow the rules.
No lease in America says you can use drugs on your property.
Addiction and mental health is being under-acknowledged as a role in all of this. Last night, we began to unravel a debate over whether criminalizing acts of homelessness should be looked at as a solution to getting people off the streets. Now, at the heart of the debate is whether cities and states have the right to criminally punish people experiencing homelessness for sleeping in public. Now, from advocates to residents and the homeless themselves, many are divided. Here's what happened yesterday. There is no question homelessness is a crisis in America, with a debate over how to solve this human tragedy being hotly contested. Grants Pass has gained national attention because of a court case between local homeless individuals and the city. Now, at the heart of the matter is whether it is cruel and unusual punishment for the city to arrest and fine people for sleeping outside in public. The case has gone all the way to the Supreme Court. Missy is a resident of Grants Pass. She says the rise in homelessness has left many residents scared.
It's really sad to see what's happened, not just down here, but this whole town.
I was assaulted. I guess that's like one of my biggest fears, is that happening again. I mean, I was alone when that happened, but I can't even imagine if like one of my kids was with me.
You say there's constant shooting up of drugs, overdoses, dead bodies have been found.
Out in the open.
Brock claims the city of Grants Pass has always been about community, but now that park has become a place for homelessness and drug use.
I'm not an expert, but I know living with drug addicts, my son's a drug addict. You could find my son a house tomorrow, but that doesn't mean he'll be able to take care of it.
So your son is actually in that park?
He's in the park right now.
You wear a hidden camera, and you're holding weekly meetings and showing some of this and talking to people because you're trying to get the city to act. What do you guys want them to do? What's the answer?
First of all, clean up the parks.
Our next guest, Dion, has thankfully found safe refuge in a shelter for the homeless after living months trying to survive on the streets.
They didn't just give me a bed to lay on or a place to go. They immediately, day one, poured so much love into you and make you feel like you're worth it and show you that there's hope.
And you don't think they should criminalize homelessness?
Absolutely not.
If somebody like you finds herself without a place to stay and the place you're in doesn't have resources to help you get over a hump, they have 50 beds and 100 people that need them, we shouldn't arrest the 50 that don't get a bed. That's insane. Well, joining us now is Donald Whitehead, who is the executive director of the National Coalition for the Homeless. On the other side is Matt Makoviak, who is the co-founder of Save Austin Now.
People don't want to be homeless. And if you find, jail, and arrest people, after that's over, they're still homeless. So you haven't solved the problem.
It's the cities that have, unfortunately, allowed open camping with really no rules almost whatsoever, certainly no enforcement. Camping is a way to allow homeless individuals to make tragic choices. We've never believed homelessness is about housing entirely. And I know Donald and I disagree on this. He's for housing first. We're for treatment first.
We're
for treatment first.
I'm for the facts.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
I'm lobbing you a softball here. You and I have been through this before. If the outcome criteria is heads in beds, right, of course you can reduce homelessness 93%. If the outcome criteria is you got a bunch of homeless people and you come and say, I'll put you in a house, they go, sure. Hell yeah, give me a house. I'm a happy camper. I'm no longer a camper. I'm now in a house. Then sure, you reduce it 93% because people will say, I'll take a house. I'll take a small unit to live in that's warm and dry and has heat. Sure, you can reduce it. But are you advancing them towards becoming a contributing member of society. You're reducing homelessness. You talk about making them invisible. You're tucking them away in a housing unit somewhere. You've reduced it 93% because you gave them a house.
But the key isn't just the housing, Dr.
I know,
Phil.
that's why I
It's
started giving you a softball. So
it's housing and supportive services to address.
But you don't require the services.
There's a case manager, and they are moved to get the services. Now, they
You don't require it.
We do require them to definitely abide by any kind of housing lease requirements that are in place.
You don't require the service. They don't have to go to rehab. They don't have to participate in therapy. They don't have to do anything.
But most
they have
people
to
will
not
do that on their own.
drugs on those services.
No, they can't do drugs because
Right.
that's going to be part of the lease. And they can't do any kind of criminal activity because that's in the lease as well. So those things they can't do. They are offered treatment. They're offered mental health services. They have a case manager. They have a whole team of people that are working to keep them in place. But that's one part of the solution. The other part is we need to create affordable housing in this country. Of the people who are eligible for affordable housing, only a quarter of the people get it because we don't have enough housing units. And Grant Pass is a perfect example. Your population exploded, but your city government, your elected officials didn't build new housing. So there's not enough housing for the people. You have one shelter, and that shelter is a faith-based shelter where you have to pray every day. And I'm a faith-based person, but I'm a Christian. Not everybody in America is a Christian. People come from other religions. They have to take a breathalyzer. So there's not enough shelter in most cities. I would say almost every city in the United States to meet the population.
Matt, what do you want to say?
Well, just that, if you think about camping for a second, and listen, I'm in favor
But
of
that's not what's at the Supreme Court now.
Right.
The Supreme Court it isn't about camping.
I understand
It's
that.
about making people criminals
No,
if they're homeless.
It's partly about that. What it really is about is it's saying...
It's cruel and unusual punishment.
Let me finish.
It's the Eighth Amendment.
Okay, let me finish. The question is, does a city have to provide housing for every person who's homeless in their city with no limitations whatsoever, or can they put rules in place? Look, no one is saying that a city is going to criminalize every homeless individual. You criminalize behavior, you criminalize choices, not existence, right? And so, look, a city like that's that size, if 10,000 homeless people move from Northern California there in a 3-month period, are taxpayers in that city supposed to be required to provide permanent supportive housing forever?
So let me.
That's what the case is really about.
So I just love to use facts to have these conversations.
So I just use facts too.
So there was a study at the University of California, and what it found is that the overwhelming majority of people that are homeless in the community come from that community. So this idea that people are moving to a community for better services, that's just a myth. It's not
No,
true.
it's not.
Oh, that's not a myth.
No.
It is a
We live in this town.
California has 55% of the homeless people in America.
They
did not
do,
come
but
from
those people,
California.
90%, that USC California study, 90% of those people came from Los Angeles. They studied the Los Angeles population. They either came from Los Angeles or somewhere else in California. So think about it. There's a person who's experiencing homelessness. They don't have enough money to be able to afford a place to live. Where did they get the money to move to California?
You don't think
It just doesn't make sense.
It's not about them getting the money. There are
hitchhike.
nonprofits that
Yeah,
put them
they're
on buses, they
hitchhiking.
hitchhike, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can ask law enforcement in any major city
People
if that
don't
happens.
move to cities for their homeless services. That's just not.
Yes,
They are
yes,
right
they do.
now.
They are now.
They are right now.
You can ask them and talk to them
So
on the street.
I do.
They
I
tell
talk to
us.
homeless
We do
people
too.
every day.
We do too in our
I've been working
town.
on homeless issues for 29 years.
I commend you for
talk
that.
to people every day. They come in my office, they sit next to me. I'm also a recovering addict.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a perfect example. If you give someone services, they can contribute to society in all kinds of ways.
Well, how do you fix the drug problem? I mean, you're
You
putting
fix
the
drug
shoe on
problem this way.
you're
Let me-
putting the
let me
shoe on
tell
your
you how
foot
you
before the
fix drug
sock.
problem. You provide facilities for people to get
We
treatment.
have them.
You just said on the commercial, somebody just said on the commercial, you don't have enough treatment facilities in your
We don't have like mental health facilities.
That's right, because we emptied out mental health facilities
Right.
during deinstitutionalization.
Yes.
What they promised was that there was going to be housing for those people leaving the mental health institutions. That never happened.
All right, well, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. We're going to add a woman who has dedicated her life to working directly with people experiencing homelessness. We're going to find out why she says they need to get off the streets. We'll meet her after the break. Let's be honest, we're not getting any younger, and if you want to look and feel your best, check out Pure Health Research. With 45 premium health supplements targeting every health goal, boosting energy, trimming belly fat, supporting blood sugar, increasing testosterone, or reducing leg swelling, Pure Health has you covered. Each formula features natural, non-GMO ingredients backed by clinical research and manufactured in the USA. Here's the best part. Pure Health Research is offering you an exclusive 35% discount. Just go to purehealthresearch.com and use coupon code PHIL at checkout. With their 365-day money-back guarantee, there's zero risk in trying something new. So why wait? Head over to purehealthresearch.com now. Explore their 45 amazing supplements and save 35% before this deal ends with coupon code PHIL. Don't miss this chance to feel your best. Life is full of surprises, and emergencies often strike when we least expect them. But preparation is key, and that's where Jace Case comes in. With Jace Case, you'll have essential emergency prescription medications right at your fingertips, ready when you need them most. Whether it's an unexpected illness or a travel mishap, having the right meds on hand can turn a potential crisis into just a minor inconvenience. Don't let the unexpected catch you off guard. Jace Case gives you peace of mind so you can tackle life surprises with confidence. Be ready. Take charge today. Head over to jace.com. That's JASE.com. And when you check out, use the code PHIL, spelled PHIL, to get a discount on your order and to have the right meds on hand the moment you need them.
After my husband passed away, and that's when I ended up in the tent in the parks. And I've been out here now for 10 months and almost 2 weeks. The old Fruitdale Elementary School used to be right here where this park is, and all three of my kids went there. And Morrison Park over there, my son, he used to play Little League in that field. I've lived here for 45 years, and then because we don't have a house, we're not considered residents. We don't all do drugs. We don't all steal. Many people need to remember that this can happen to anybody.
Michelle Steeb ran Northern California's largest homeless shelter for women and children for 13 years. She's also a senior fellow with the Texas Public Policy Foundation, working on policies that help people experiencing homelessness in this country. So welcome, Michelle. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Now, Michelle, many are struggling with addiction and mental illness. That's just a fact, true?
Yeah, in the program I ran, again, the largest in Northern California, 78% of our women were struggling with addiction, about 70% with mental illness, domestic violence, many other issues as well, yep.
And you're saying taking those people and giving them four walls and a bed just doesn't address the issue.
That's exactly right.
And what do you think's missing?
Well, let me give a little context. So in 2013, our country was dealt a seismic blow, our homeless system. Basically, the federal government, which is the largest funder of homelessness, said, we are only going to fund one thing, that is permanent, lifelong housing vouchers with no conditions for everyone who struggles with homelessness. What we basically did was we dismantled our homelessness system. We took away funding for mental health, for drug and alcohol counseling, for therapy. We no longer require those things either. We dismantled shelters. We dismantled transitional housing programs. We completely dismantled accountability in the system. At the individual level, there's no accountability. At the nonprofit level, there's no accountability. There's 11 nonprofits right now in San Francisco that are under investigation for misuse of funds. And there's no accountability at the federal level, at the government level. Homelessness has gone up. We are at the highest point in our country's history right now under this policy because we only fund one thing, and that is lifelong housing without services. And we need to rebuild a system that we've completely dismantled.
Well, let me talk about that for a minute. I would really like your opinion about this, Michelle. And Donald and Matt, I'd like you to weigh in on this as well, because from a psychological standpoint, I got a real problem with this. I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson here for a second, guys. And this, you're going to think, oh, here we go with some boring thing. It's really not. Up until 1845, when a woman named Dorothea Dix really made a monumental change in the treatment of the mentally ill, they were chained up. In this country, they were chained up in concrete stalls, often naked, and hosed down like animals. Mentally ill people were treated like they were some kind of possessed demons. And honestly, they were chained up until Dorothea Dix, who had some issues of her own, really started raising hell about this, first in Massachusetts, then in New Jersey. And she actually got a federal bill going, which President Franklin Pierce vetoed in 45, and then had to come back and fight it again. And until we finally started saying, wait a minute, this is an illness. We have to start treating this. Until 1845, it was barbaric the way these people were treated. And then things started progressing. And then in the mid-1900s, we started putting them on powerful drugs that we didn't know how worked, actually started doing lobotomies and just warehousing these people. Not really doing anything to help them, just getting them out of the way so they weren't inconvenient to society in these massive asylums. Think One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It was that type thing where we just warehouse these people until what you are talking about happened and the funding pulled, and then we stopped warehousing and started streeting these people. So now they're on the street. That's why there's such a high concentration among the chronic population of mentally ill and addicted people. 85% of the deaths of homeless people are overdoses. What do you figure? There's 22% of homeless people are chronic? And among those, 78% are addicted, 65% live on the street, 85% deaths are drug-related, and as many as 67%, according to a study in 24, are mentally ill. Nobody's treating these people. We're talking about this like it's a homelessness epidemic. This is a mental illness epidemic, and nobody's offering treatment to these people. If we don't treat these people, they're going to continue to behave in maladaptive ways and continue to unwind. And many of these are veterans who have put their lives on the line for our country and come back and are not getting the support that they deserve. And that is a shame. You can measure the quality of any society by the way they treat their elderly and their veterans, and we get a really bad score right now. Michelle?
There's actually one long-term study where they placed the chronically homeless individuals in housing without mandatory services. In 5 years, almost 50% of the people died. And 2 years later, 36% remain in housing. This does not work. And a lot of the people that are struggling with mental illness and addiction are also struggling with a deficit of self-awareness called anosognosia that prevents them from being self-aware and recognizing the need for help. So not mandating it and not funding these services is such a horrible mistake. I think the Boston study proves this is putting people into hospice for the vast majority of people that are being housed under this policy.
So Donald, how do we step up? If we're going to do housing first, there are a number of studies that suggest that it is the most efficacious approach because it's lower risk than being on the street. But if we don't get a more aggressive approach to treating the mental illness and helping with the addiction, it's not going to have the long-term effect that it could have. It's wasted money if we don't get them better services.
Most of us out here, we lost our jobs during COVID or couldn't catch up.
I had 2 jobs and at home. The COVID hit and everything just went downhill.
This is not the life for anybody. I'm looking on it. I'm alive.
$36 trillion. That is the U.S. debt, and it gets deeper and deeper by the day. Our debt has never been higher, nor have the stakes. The government is looking to slash the federal budget by $2 trillion, and no one knows what that will mean for your job, savings, and future. I've seen a lot in my time, and there's one thing I know for sure. You need to prepare before it's too late. I trust Preserve Gold to help protect my wealth, and I strongly urge you to do the same. They are the only precious metals firm I trust and recommend to my family, friends, and audience, and they have a special offer just for you. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue throughout 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 today.
I've had lived experience. I was homeless for 15 and a half years. A lot of these people don't want to be out here. As far as that goes, you got to have a place to have a shower. You got to have a shower to have a job. You got to have an ID to have a job. You need an address for an ID. So like, it's a brutal cycle. It's pretty vicious. And getting out of it, once you get in it, it's really hard.
I'm 65, grew up in Hawaii, lots of sunshine. My degree is in environmental science. Had a good life, had a marriage, didn't last. My focus was on trying to get my farm going. My farm got sold. I had it for 35 years. I developed it. It was my baby. Had cancer, which I knew I had, but hadn't seen a doctor at that time because I didn't have insurance in Hawaii. And the cost of living is so expensive there. I sold everything I had and moved to the West Coast. I've been here for the last 16 months.
Everybody's story is different. A lot of people have come in from other areas. A lot of people are local, you know. One wrong misstep and they ended up out here, you know. I do challenge people to get to know their stories and get to know the people and not just make judgments.
I was given socks when I was homeless. I was given socks, shampoo, and some crackers. That was better than any kind of money that anybody could have given me. Socks I had on haven't been washed in about 2.5 weeks. Just that little stuff gives you hope. Love your neighbor as thyself. Like, isn't that the code that we live by? But you think you're better than the person that's sitting at the light asking for money. Just have a little bit of compassion.
If we don't get a more aggressive approach to treating the mental illness and helping with the addiction, it's not going to have the long-term effect that it could have. It's wasted money if we don't get them better services.
So a couple of things. The program is designed to address mental health and substance abuse services. In fact, to qualify for permanent supportive housing, you have to have a disability and you have to be homeless for more than a year. And when people go into those programs, the idea is that we will move them into treatment. And if we go back and look at history accurately, from 2007 to 2016, we saw a dramatic decrease in the number of people homeless in this country. We saw an increase this year. It went up by 12%. You're absolutely right. The culprit is not people's mental health or substance abuse. It's the housing cost increases in this country that have increased at a rate of year over year 18%. So we've seen dramatic housing cost increases in this country. That's why we've seen an increase in homelessness. It's not because more people are mentally ill or more people have substance abuse. The largest sector, the largest growing sector of the population is seniors. And so for the seniors, for the majority of them, there's not a substance abuse or mental health issue there. The issue
But you
is that
can't-
people can't afford housing in this country.
But you can't deny that a significant portion of the existing homeless population does have mental illness issues.
The majority of the people who are unsheltered in homelessness, the majority of the people that we see on the street, and I understand that that's who people encounter. They encounter people living on the street, but that's only a small portion of the population, 26%. That means the other 74% are veterans. There are women who are suffering in domestic violence. There are people who just can't afford the rent. That's the larger portion of the population, and we get them through the system very quickly. In Los Angeles, 725 people get housed every day through the homeless system. Guess what? The next day, 725 more show up. So we have to go upstream. We have to prevent evictions. We have to give people wages that they can use to afford housing. Nowhere in this country, nowhere, zero, not one community in this country can you afford a 2-bedroom housing unit if you make minimum wage in this country, if you get subsidized income in this country. So we have to produce more housing in this country. Homelessness is a housing problem, and we have to create more housing. And I would say that those mental health and other services really got cut back when we started the war on drugs. That's when we start cutting back on mental health. That's when we start cutting back on substance abuse treatment programs in this country. That's when we started to go downhill, when we started to, a war on drugs became a war on poverty.
You can't be tunnel visioned on housing and to the exclusion of mental health. It is a major
My son
issue.
has a house. My son has a house.
I'm not saying that mental health is not an issue in this country. I would
It is a major issue. What do you want
because
to say?
of deinstitutionalization.
So-
That's right. That's right.
I
What do you want to say?
mentioned in 2013 when we rolled out Housing First as a one-size-fits-all solution, right?
It's not a one-size-fits-all, though.
It
That's
is.
the thing.
It
It's
is.
one solution
Okay, let me finish
among
with
a number
data.
of solutions.
Since you're very data-oriented, I want to finish with this data. Between 2014 and 2019, as a country, we increased the number of permanent housing units by 42.7%.
That is correct.
Unsheltered homelessness went up by 20.5%. This was during a very great economy. The overall sheltered population went up by 16%.
And where did housing come
If housing, let me just finish. If housing were the solution to homelessness would have gone down as we increased the amount of housing by 42.7%. That is a fact.
The fact
That is
is,
HUD
the
data.
definition for homelessness is the lack of housing. It's not having enough
That's
housing.
your
How do you
definition,
pay
that's
for
not
your
mine.
rent if you can't hold a job?
How do you pay for your rent if you?
Yeah, I
can't
mean,
hold
are
a
these
job?
people going to
Now-
pay for
now,
the rent?
now, let me just
if you
go.
can't hold a job, if you can't hold a job, how do you maintain a home?
When you get subsidized housing in this country, you only pay 30% of your income for
If you
rent.
can't,
So if your income is zero,
or if you have nothing,
pay
what
zero.
if you spend all of your money on drugs? Every last dime.
Well,
You
it's
spend it on
based on
drugs.
your
And if
income.
you give them a house, they'll rent out the rooms
have empty-
to buy more drugs.
We have
and they'll
empty
ruin the
houses,
house.
right? We just had a
So let's talk about the
large
empty
building
houses.
that was built. Most of them are 1-bedrooms, but I was trying to find, because I help with the homeless as well. I go down there and I try to help with whatever services, and this is just all like me doing it, on my free time. And in Grants Pass specifically, the HUD wait list is 6 months. And you ask them, have you applied for HUD? They don't want it because if you go get on HUD, there's rules that you have to follow and they want to continue using drugs. But also, we have, I think there was like 10 or 15 available units that are just still sitting empty because nobody wants to follow the rules that it takes to go get into those. Our shelters are
I think those are
empty.
generalized statements. People
just saying,
don't
Grants
want to
Pass
be
is gonna
homeless.
be
People want to
different
be in houses.
than these communities
There's
we're
tens of
talking about.
thousands of abandoned
You haven't
buildings
walked in
this
our
country.
parks.
There's tens of thousands of. I've walked in parks.
No, in our parks in
It's a
Grants
lot
Pass.
different in
Right now,
Grants
Grants
I've
Pass,
talked to-
everybody's around.
It's way different.
I've talked to people from Grants Pass.
You don't
They're
live
walking
there, though.
around
You don't
with
live there.
$5,000
You don't see it.
Wait.
Walk through the park with
The
me.
majority,
Today on Skid Row, 50% of the permanent housing units are vacant. Why are they vacant? Because it has become so dangerous. The cartels have taken over, the drug dealers have taken over, violence is happening
So
left and right. It is pure chaos. 50% of the units on Skid Row. How do you answer to
So let me say this, that is that the fault of the people who are on Skid Row that crime is around them?
It's the fault of giving people housing without any rules and any
Housing, permanent supportive housing does have rules.
It has.
People keep saying that up here. It's not just a giveaway of housing. They do have to abide by the lease. The lease, no lease in America says you can use drugs on your property. So they have to abide by the lease or they
I think what they're telling you
removed
is
from
what
the program.
you say on the lease and what's happening in the
No
real
one's
world
keeping
are
them
two
accountable.
very different things.
So who's keeping the rest of America accountable? So why is it that these people who are the most marginalized people in this country have to abide by a set of rules that nobody else in America has?
Because you're actually
Can you drink in your unit?
Housing. That's
Can
why.
you drink in your unit? We give taxpayer dollars to people who own their houses. That's the biggest source of federal government funding is the mortgage interest deduction. All of us get that. So taxpayers are paying for everybody's housing.
Right. So should there be any limit, though, on what taxpayers provide to the homeless? Should there be any limit, any rules, any accountability at all?
There are rules and accountability.
Then why?
If
These are
you
false
fix
statements.
the person will take care of himself.
You can't fix people. God can fix people, but we can't fix people.
You're saying there's no hope for my
Let me
son.
say this. There is hope for your son. You know why I know that? Because I was homeless myself.
Okay, were you drug addicted?
I was drug
Since you're 18
addicted.
years old,
I was drug
you've been on
addicted. I'm a
heroin for
recovering
20
addict.
years.
I have 29 years clean. And you know how I got that? Somebody gave me a unit with some supportive services, and my life changed completely.
I've done that for my son many times. My son he knows he can come if he gets into a program and he gets off drugs.
We have to just stop demonizing
let me
people.
finish. How many people are like my son? All these young men I see in the parks that I walk through are just like my son.
That's the nature of
And if they
addiction.
got off drugs, they have family and they got friends,
This
brothers and
gentleman just
sisters
told you
that
his
will take
story.
them off the street if they get clean. You're getting clean. Tons of people will help you. You'll get way more help if you're clean.
Yeah.
Yes, but everybody doesn't get clean
You've
the
got
first
control
time.
of your life again.
Everybody doesn't get clean the first time.
I've relapsed just as many times.
I know.
as my son
Absolutely.
probably has.
So
And it's
sometimes
the hope that you need to give.
Sometimes it takes 10 times to get people clean. But you can't help a person getting clean sleeping on the ground in a park.
No, you
People
can't.
need a roof over their head so people can come in and give them those messages of recovery. Or give them help with their mental health issues.
All right,
You can't do that in a park.
I want to see more drug hab and mental health facilities for these poor people. Let's fix these people.
As a final word, I will say my position is that addiction and mental health is being under-acknowledged as a role in all of this. And I think when we cut funding and deinstitutionalized, it really hurt the situation. And look, it isn't one size fits all. This is a complex problem that doesn't have a simple solution. And, you know, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I look at things from a psychological standpoint, so I look at that and realize when people are compromised in their mental and emotional functioning, it's hard for them to make strides. If you fix that, I think there's a much better chance for them returning to a contributing member of society. I think that has to happen. You say those supportive services are available. I think they need to be more than available. I think we need to do everything we can to get those people into those services. You know, it's like these drug safe havens for people to go where they can take their drugs safely. They say, well, we encourage them to get into rehab also. Well, yeah, there's one counselor down at the far end of the hall and they can talk to them if they want to and not if they don't. That's not what I call encouraging them into rehab. I think it has to be a much more aggressive part of whatever solution we offer these people on the street. They've lost their way. They've lost their ability to self-motivate. They've lost their ability to plan. They've lost their ability to connect the dots and get back going. They're not going to find it in a tent in the park. They're not going to find it in a house they're provided if they're not given the motivation. They're not self-starting at this point. They need help doing that. So that's just how I feel about it. And the data suggests that there are a significant number of people that are suffering from addiction and mental health among the homeless population, chronic or acute. And there are a lot of people that just can't pay their rent. It doesn't apply to them. This isn't a monolithic population. It's very different. So it's not one size fits all, as we say. We'll continue this conversation. Thank you so much. Matt, thank you. Thanks so much to all of my guests tonight. A special thanks to Donald Whitehead, Matt Makowiak, and Michelle Steep for lending their expertise tonight. We're going to keep talking about this. Okay, next, questions from the audience when we come back.
We're at the Gospel Rescue Mission in Grants Pass, Oregon. Our whole objective is to help people leave homelessness behind, to get free from drug addiction, find themselves integrated back into society.
I was homeless. I lost my house, I lost my job, I lost my career due to my drug addiction. I kept trying to take steps forward, but kept taking too many back. I kept walking up down railroad tracks, never had shoes or socks. And then I come down and there was a Rock food pantry down there. And I seen people down there, so I decided, I needed to do something. So I came down there and I volunteered my time every day. I started sleeping underneath the awning, and I just kind of became a fixture down there. And I never left. I worked really hard. I got hired on as an assistant manager. I made mistakes. I never got scolded for them. I just got taught how to make them better. Today, at 4 years, I'm clean and sober. And without Brian and this mission and his crew and all of his staff, I wouldn't be where I am today. I went from being nobody to somebody.
We've got to get to work as a community to kind of go, okay, well, where are the gaps then? What do we need to build? Because the Gospel Rescue Mission can't handle them all. We never intended to handle them all. There's a lot of folks that are out there that are outside of our skill set. They need, medical assistance, and they maybe need mental health assistance and things. That's not our wheelhouse. That's not what we do. But it doesn't mean that shouldn't be done. We've just got to create the solution for those folks and work together and say, where do we need to fundraise? What do we need to do to make that happen? I think that's the best possible outcome. And yelling at the high cost of housing and landlords and everything is not going to solve it. And trying to make the state solve the housing problem is not going to solve it. Every time the state tries to fix it, they just keep making it worse, it seems like. So my advice would be to have them just leave it alone, and let's work on the things that we can work on, the gaps that we can fix. Because they've been saying the housing problem, it's been a housing problem for 20 years, and it's just getting worse in that regards. Fix the things that we can fix.
Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. I hope you found tonight's conversation interesting. This is a tough problem, right? Because everybody, if you just go to moving people from one spot to another, that doesn't fix the problem, right? If you don't want them in your neighborhood, and so you just move them down the street, that fixes your problem, but now the people down the street have a problem. And whether or not cities have the right to enforce a ban on camping if they don't have anywhere for people to go. Like if you don't have resources, you don't have a shelter, and people don't have a home, do you have the right to arrest them? I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, I've been homeless actually when I was 14 in Kansas City on the streets, and I had zero money and zero parents and zero place to stay. And if they had come and said, we're going to arrest you unless you go home, I'd have been like, because I didn't have anywhere to go. And so if that would have meant go home or go to jail, I'd have had to go to jail. Have y'all encountered homeless people? Has it been a negative, positive situation? I've talked to a lot of homeless folks, and I do it on purpose sometimes. And a lot of them that I've talked to are like this young man here, very able-bodied, and they get into drugs and they just don't want to work. So it's a difficult situation. It is a problem, and it's not as clean cut as I think Donald thinks it is. It's a lot messier than policy suggests. Yes, ma'am. Let's bring you a microphone. Question or comment?
What changed in your life after you were 14 and homeless?
Well, we actually moved to Kansas City, and we were able to get an apartment, but it was right near the school. But we didn't have money for deposits for utilities. So we had a one-bedroom apartment, like about this big. So it got dark at like 4:30, and then it got really cold because we were there for 4 months without any electricity, which is really boring. You know, the worst thing about being homeless is boredom. Like there, it got dark at 4:30, and so you have no light. You can't read, you can't do anything. But, you know, at the time, you don't know it's that bad. You know, you're a kid, you don't know. But you learn a lot from that. I would never wish that on my boys, but I actually don't regret it. I didn't mind it at the time, and I don't really regret it now. It wasn't that big a deal. I did learn that you can get a job anytime you want one, because I had a job every day. You just have to hustle. I had a job every day. Every single day I had a job. It's a different job, different things. I've had some crummy jobs. And I've had some jobs I was crummy at. I'll tell you, I've been fired several times. I worked for A&W Root Beer Stand, and I was pretty good till they put us on skates. I'd been there about 3 days and they put us on skates. I went, damn it. There is still hamburgers rolling down May Avenue. It's like, me and skates didn't work. I'm like, all right, well, we're out of time. Thanks so much. Since we taped tonight's episode, we reached out to the new mayor of Grants Pass for a statement and received the following. Thank you for reaching out. This is an important issue, and we are actively reviewing all aspects to ensure we make the best decision for our community. At this time, we don't have a final answer, but we will share updates as soon as we can.